Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Hey everybody, what's going on? Sorry, I didn't realize we were going, and so I was like still plugged in and charging, so I had to, not me, my headphones were. Sorry, I made that sound like
Confirmed, Sejan is a robot. His hatred of the machines finally caught up to him. We will mourn your loss
They made
and
me
welcome.
one of them.
That's why I hate robots, said Will Smith in I, Robot, because I got this one hand. That's a robot hand.
Oh man.
Man. So Sejan,
So what's up, Dev?
this is the episode right here. This episode is why we started the Say Report. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. And not just is this the reason why we started the Say Report, this is the reason why the Say Report is a show about everything. Because had we decided to do a true crime podcast or like a movie podcast, we couldn't talk about what I am so amped to talk about right fucking now. And that is The Masked Singer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's season 5 of The Masked Singer. There's going to be spoilers for the pilot of The Masked Singer. If you're one of these people who watches The Masked Singer, I invite you to bow out now until you've watched the pilot episode of season 5 of The Masked Singer, because I got a fucking problem with it. And I'm about to air it.
The Masked Singer? Are we sponsored by The Masked Singer? You've said that a lot.
No, we're not sponsored by The Masked Singer. I'm just so angry with them that they get free signaling from me. So congratulations, Masked Singer. Sejan, are you familiar with The Masked Singer?
I watched the first couple of episodes when it first got brought over to the States. I'm aware enough to know that it is not a new concept. It is something that has gone on in Asian territories for a while. Didn't Ryan Reynolds back to promote Deadpool, the first one, like appear as a masked singer on some season of like a Korean version of it or something like that?
That is very
like,
true.
Yeah. So like I know like the history of it and I know like the stories of it, but it's not anything that I like watch. Ken Jeong is one of the hosts, or at least was in the first season.
No, he still is. Ken Jeong,
he's still one of the judges.
He is the anchor of the entire masked universe.
He's the Simon, right?
In America. Because not only was he on Masked Singer, he was also on The Masked Dancer. Because apparently wearing a mask makes it hard to figure out who someone is dancing. I've watched 2 episodes of The Masked Dancer, and I knew who both of the dancers were, like, right off the bean. To the fact that...
well, they can't really do the whole, like, put them in a suit that hides their entire body shtick, right? Like, you can't do... I mean, I guess you could.
It's funny that you should mention that. I mean, one of them was Ice-T. So, like, I've watched enough Ice-T music videos to know when it's Ice-T dancing. And that's crazy, right? I've watched no SVU. What's up? What's up, Sejan?
I said, did he do the Carlton?
No, he did not do the Carlton. I don't think you can legally do the Carlton anymore without having to pay somebody. Unless
you're Alfonso Rivera, right? Like, yeah. Didn't he do it on like one of his dance like competition shows?
Yeah, he did it on Dancing with the Stars. The fact of the matter is, I'm fucking tired of all the reality TV anyway. But there is a sacred contract between viewer and reality TV show that The Masked Singer flagrantly violated in the first episode of season 5.
Oh no. It's a TV crime, man. It's our kind of crime.
I'm very angry. I'm not... This anger is real anger. Because they introduced a singer, and the singer was the snail. And it was a full-body costume. So, like, initially your thoughts go to, maybe it's somebody who's in a wheelchair, that they need to cover the wheelchair with the snail costume.
I think I know who this is going to be, Devin.
Oh, I bet you do, Sejan.
Yeah, I heard the stories, and I couldn't believe that they pulled this shit. Let's talk about it.
So then the snail comes out, and the snail sings You Make My Dreams Come True by Hall & Oates, and the snail really sounds a lot like Kermit the Frog. like a lot like Kermit the Frog. And all the hints before the thing, because they do a little package to introduce you to him so that, like, maybe the judges, maybe Robin Thicke and Nicole Scherzinger and Ken Jeong can figure out who it is, because they play points for no money, just for the fun of it. They have a giant teddy bear, and they say that it's an actor, producer, director who's hosted an award show. So, like, Seth MacFarlane's the person you're thinking is going to be there. To the fact that, like, even Robin Thicke is like, I'm pretty sure it's Seth MacFarlane. And then coming out, singing, like, wrong-sounding Muppets Kermit, right? And we all know what that means. The fact of the matter is Jim Henson is dead. Jim Henson has been dead since the 90s.
Well, and more recently than that, the Kermit, the actor that played Kermit, was fired pretty publicly in 2018 and replaced. So we're twice down the rabbit hole on that one.
Yeah, it's been 2 Batman changes, and I'm not
officially at Clooney.
Actually, wouldn't we technically be at Val Kilmer, right? Because it'd be Adam West, then Michael Keaton.
Sure, let's start with West. Let's do the man the honor.
He earned it. He earned it, regardless. So, you know, the second you hear someone doing a Kermit the Frog voice, you think it's an impression. Because Jim Henson is not there to do the voice anymore. So you hear it, and it's, you make my dreams come true. That was a terrible Kermit. Kermit the Frog here. I can't do it. So they do it, and then lo and behold, the snail, despite having a pretty good performance, is the one voted out in the first episode of The Masked Singer. So, you know, everybody places their guesses as to who it is. And, you know who it was? You want to know who was in the snail? Who was under the mask of the snail, Sejum?
Was it Seth MacFarlane?
No, it was motherfucking Kermit the Frog. the Muppet Kermit the Frog. First of all...
So talk to me about what oath they broke with this.
It's supposed to be real people.
You have no soul. The Muppets are real.
No. Curse you, son of Krypton. It pissed me off, Sejan. It pissed me off so much because I'm not thinking Muppets. I'm not like, of course I'm like, well, it sounds like Kermit the Frog. So I have to think of people who have really solid Kermit the Frog impressions. Mm-hmm. And, like, they're also pushing you towards Seth MacFarlane, and supposedly they don't know. And, like, Seth MacFarlane does a bunch of Kermit stuff on Family Guy. And he's a hell of a singer. So, would it be too hard to figure out that it might be him? But no, it was legitimately Kermit the Frog, which, against the fact that it's already bullshit, because Kermit the Frog isn't even Kermit the goddamn Frog anymore.
You're so upset about
it. I was so mad because I'm like, all right, well, it sounds like Kermit the Frog. So my mind starts going through all these humans that it could be who sound like Kermit the Frog, and I just ignore the fact that it could potentially be a goddamn Muppet in there. Like, it'd be one thing if then it was like, and here's the guy who did the singing. No, we gotta keep the illusion alive that Kermit the Frog is fucking real. Even though he's not fucking real, because there's been 2 other Kermits already! Ah!
I think the problem is, I really think the problem that exists with this, and I do think that there was a problem. I do not disagree. This was a weird fucking move on their part. The problem is it draws attention to how scripted reality TV always has been. And I think what's interesting is that Asian reality TV has always kind of had that attitude of like, you're just watching you're watching television. This contest is going to be ridiculous. We're going to make people do stupid things, you know, like so there's that. So The Masked Singer existing in that market, allowing Ryan Reynolds to come on for what could have only been an episode. There's no, I mean, like, I may be wrong here, but I doubt.
I'm pretty sure that he was there for a couple. Like, it was a while before he was revealed to be under the mask.
That is even more insane. Right?
I mean, that's what Ryan Reynolds does.
But like going onto an Asian game show to do it though is a specific joke, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so with that idea, right, is that this is something that could have happened on the Korean versions of this show, and we would have just like it. Yeah, of course, right? Like, we wouldn't bat an eye. And so it's that weird little thing where, like, in a weird way, the show is doing too well at its game, like its point, its main idea. It's ridiculous. The second that they announced, I mean, God love the guy, but the second they announced Ken Jeong as one of the what do you call it?
As the anchor,
not host.
He's not the host. He's the lead judge.
Yeah. As the lead judge, like you kind of had. They're giving you all of these hints on this is how you're supposed to read this show, right? So in a weird way, I am totally okay with it because I don't hold it up to like the same. not the same standard. That's not fair. But like Real Housewives pertains to be a dose of reality that this show does not. Or to a better one is we talked about it earlier, Dancing with the Stars. There is an element to Dancing with the Stars where these people are being extremely earnest in their attempt to win this television reality competition. But we know that that's not always the case on those shows. There's always scripted things that happen throughout seasons and stuff like that. The Masked Singer just doesn't hide that, and it never pretended to. Like, you know what I mean? Like so I'm kind of okay with it because of that. If it was any other show, I'd be just as angry as you. But something about it being The Masked Singer makes it sit a little okay with me.
I feel hornswoggled. I feel completely bamboozled. It was just so unfair. It was so unfair because, like, it sounds like Kermit the Frog. That's my thought. But knowledge, precludes me from guessing Kermit the Frog. Because it has never been someone who's not a human before. And, like, now, watching the show, do I always have to think that maybe it's not a real people?
It's a cartoon in there, Roger. I mean, Space Jam 2 is coming out. Like, if they had Daffy Duck hop out of one of those suits one night, would you be that surprised now?
No, now I wouldn't. But I feel like that it cheapens the show. And you've made a very interesting argument that the show already cheapened itself. And as someone who doesn't watch the show all the time, I mean, I'm off reality TV. The fact of the matter is I'm off reality TV. I used to be a real big Survivor follower until I got involved on message boards talking about Survivor. And then I'm like, oh my God, every Survivor is the fucking same. Every series of Survivor is the same. And then it goes one step beyond. When I go and I'm actually on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I see how the producers, like, I was assigned my own producer, and she's like, here's what we want you to do. And, like, also straight up, like, she's like, oh, we should lean into the fact that you've never seen Mean Girls. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, no, I'll watch Mean Girls before this fucking show if you're going to play up the fact that I've never seen Mean Girls. The fact that I had never seen I hate Mean Girls too. And like, that wasn't good. That's the thing. Imagine if I had put off watching Mean Girls for so long because of the reaction that people in the world had to Mean Girls and the way that people cheered on Mean Girls. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. I'm a contrarian. I have indie music syndrome. And no way I'm watching Mean Girls, which for a long time, that's kind of all it was, Sejan. That's kind of all it was. And then eventually I'm like, oh, I need to watch Mean Girls because Millionaire is not taking advantage of me because I didn't watch Mean Girls. And then I watch Mean Girls and I'm... Which day of the week do they wear pink? Is it A, Monday, B, Thursday, C, Wednesday, or D, Friday?
Wednesday.
Final answer?
Sure.
All right, you've just won $500.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I watch Mean Girls, though, and I'm like, man, this movie's not good. I mean, I'll admit, this movie is not for me. I am not a teenage girl in high school, nor am I someone in high school who might be being ridiculed by the popular kids. So, like, you don't have that built-in audience participation with Devin Decker for something like Mean Girls. But yeah. But no, going on Millionaire and being on Millionaire completely lost interest in reality TV after that. And there's a story. Man. And now this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The Masked Singer is like, to me, Masked Singer is already trying to be that like kind of satire of the TV like reality game show. So for them to take it to this level is just not surprising. If it had been anything else, I would have been, like I said, right there with you.
If I hadn't thought to myself, wow, that sounds a lot like Kermit the Frog, only for it to eventually be Kermit the Frog, I don't think I'd have the same level of anger and acrimony.
Well, also apparently your family like puts like money bets on this shit. It's the only reason I could think that you'd be this invested.
Oh, they all knew. They all knew too, and they're like, "Who do you think it is?" And I'm like, "Well, it sounds like Kermit the Frog." So I don't know. I mean, Seth MacFarlane fits with the hints of it, and he does a pretty good Kermit the Frog impression. And, you know, I could see him getting voted off the first week because he got shit to do. He's not like Ice-T, who I don't know why he went first on The Masked Dancer. What's he doing? I guess SVU, right? They're in their 21st season. They're about to have more episodes of Law & Order SVU than Law & Order. And they're, like, proud of that. And I'm, like, sad for Law & Order.
It has become the quintessential Law & Order, though. Like, right? Like, SVU now, like, in a room full of people like our age and older, if you said Law & Order, they would think of the original show. And with Sweeney Todd there, what's his name? Aubach, right?
Aubach. Who are you talking about?
No,
Jerry Orbach?
Yeah, Jerry Orbach.
Yeah.
He was the original Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, I know he was.
but also, yeah, Law and Order. But anyway, yeah. So like we think of that, right? Like, but I know that like you start getting anything younger than us, and people that the first thing they think of is SVU. Like that is their Law and Order. That's the one that they watched instead of going to classes in freshman year. You know?
Oh man, that's sad. Thank you for that. I watched Ed, just as a reminder. We've talked about it too many times on the show for it to go into a diatribe. But nice connection to my Masked Singer anger. That's where I discovered Hall & Oates. So, you know, one door closes and a window opens.
In the Masked Singer, you've only just discovered Hall & Oates?
No, in Ed! In Ed!
Oh.
I'm sorry about all the noise that just happened with my anger burst. All right. So, Sejan, how about you? You got anything? I have, like, weird things that I want to touch on this week.
We should we should speak a little bit about some of the Disney stuff that's been going on, because we've put out an episode last week, our special episode about Justice League, which you should go check out, and in that talking a lot about like Warner Brothers and comparing it a lot in the ways to what Disney's been up to. And we sit here in a week in which Disney in one swift motion was like, we're going to release everything this year on our platform, and then like 2 days later WB was like, not us. Right? So there's been a lot of that going on. So in that, like, we should probably talk about some of the Disney stuff we've been watching.
I would love to talk about some of the Disney stuff we've been watching. And I think the best place to start is with Falcon and Winter Soldier as sort of a carryover from last week's slight discussion on the pilot. Have you gotten a chance to see it yet?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so you're all caught up? I can't spoil season?
Zemo.
Okay. Well, and I have an issue with that. I'll just get that issue out of the way. We have to go see Zemo. That's where you end the episode. I don't need to see Zemo to be reminded who that is.
You don't, as somebody that just watched them recently and as somebody that is invested in this, but I bet that is in there for my mother. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely a person that needs that. And I think that speaks to something about Falcon and Winter Soldier versus WandaVision for me that I'm really feeling, is that Falcon and Winter Soldier it doesn't care to even ask the question, should I trust my audience? Whereas like WandaVision was like, look, we trust that you guys are going to stick with us no matter what we do. So this is going to get weird, and we're not always going to fill you in or remind you or any of that. And then you look at Falcon and Winter Soldier, and in 2 episodes, there's been more like hand-holding Marvel than anything I've seen in a long time.
I mean, so all of these had to have been made early, right? Like, I imagine that all 6 episodes are shot. But episode 2 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, The Star-Spangled Man, really felt like it was reactionary to how flat on its face the first episode fell. And that is hilarious to me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that, like, I feel like the second episode, without a doubt, definitely the strongest of the two, stronger of the two. But the idea being that that's where the show really establishes what it's going to be going forward. The first episode really is all tie-in stuff to like, here's how we're connected to what's happened. Here's the point in time we are. Here's the connection to other stories you're going to need to be aware of. And here's a little bit of new material for going forward. And that, like, it feels like epilogue material to a T.
Yeah, I loved the first episode, and it's also one of those situations where people complain about the first 3 episodes of WandaVision, but then once the 4th rolls along, you have amazing context to like go back to. That first episode, even though it wasn't the lethal weapon of the MCU, which I still take some umbrage with, I'm not afraid to admit that.
Bucky is straight up in therapy and talks about killing himself. Sorry, keep going.
Mel Gibson wasn't in therapy. He just wanted to kill himself. But Like, that episode established so many important things for me, and weirdly, connecting it to the real world, that same morning on CBS This Morning, they did a whole special about finding a job after the COVID-19 pandemic and what it means to have a, space in your resume. Because for the longest time, having a gap on your resume was like considered the largest sin you could commit.
Yeah.
If you hadn't always been working, you'll never work again. Is this way that
And is it episode 1 where we see Sam literally see that with the loan application?
With the loan application.
Or is that season? Or is that episode 2?
That's episode 1. And and it was this thing in episode 1 where we had literally just watched a report on, like, after a year, people might have difficulty finding a job if they didn't have a job because, surprise, there were no jobs for a lot of people. A lot of industries just shuttered. And even, like, but it doesn't look like industry is going to care about that. They're, like, going to wonder, well, why didn't you work during the pandemic? Why didn't you find some temporary job? And then you have Sam Wilson go to try to get a bank loan and be recognized by the banker as the Falcon. And then he's like, we can't offer you any money. You haven't worked for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
To which the perfect response of, I didn't exist for the last 5 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does a very good job tying itself to the real world. That's a fantastic, like, example. But, like, it's also hard to ignore the racial stuff that we start seeing creeping in that I think we're going to see a lot more of in the rest of this show in the second episode. And I mean, the scene where him and Bucky are walking down the street and the cops, like, pull them over to, like, harass them feels like it was, like, completely written on the heels of everything that happened this summer. But, like, as far as I know, this show has been in production since Endgame ended, right? Like, so it was really, really wild to kind of, like, take in what some of the stuff that's going on in universe and in show. Like, it feels like it's much more ripped from the headlines than WandaVision needed to be because it's a completely different type of show, right?
Yeah. And I can actually say, like, as someone who's been to Baltimore, Baltimore has become a fucking city on the hill with its utopian passing of, like, decriminalizing all drugs and prostitution. Like, I don't know if you've read any of that stuff. Reading that and then seeing how they were treated while in Baltimore was hard for me to wrap my head around. But then as someone who's been in Baltimore and just walked around Baltimore at, like, too late at night and, like, not giving a damn about where I went, like, I'm Devin Decker. I should be fine. I've seen some shit in Baltimore where, like, I can totally imagine that one of the reasons that sequence is set there, outside of the fact that it would make sense for someone like Isaiah Bradley to settle outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
For it to also just, like, be a place where they'd set it to have that sequence happen, even if they started it back when they were working on Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just...
So there's been some stuff in these couple of episodes, and you say that the first one kind of fell flat, and I didn't have to worry about that because I watched that one followed right by the second one this weekend. So, like, I didn't have that moment of, like, settling into. I did definitely feel as the second episode kind of got going, I was like, okay, like this is you had my attention, now you have my, what is it? Anyway,
you had my interest, now you have my attention.
Like that, but there it is, right? Like, it wasn't like I was not gonna watch the show after the first episode. Like, it was what I needed it to be. But this is much more of the show that I thought it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to clarify, it didn't fall flat for me. That first episode made me so excited. And actually, the second episode, where right off the bat they're together, I was a little bummed. Because I liked that the first episode had them in parallel storylines. Not even, like, parallel storylines. I didn't think they were ever going to intersect. And I'm like, if they don't intersect till, like, episode 4, I would be fine with that. But then you only
if
have
this
6
was a
episodes.
Netflix Marvel,
Yeah.
yeah, but if this was a Netflix Marvel show, I bet you would have seen something more like that.
Yeah. And
But there's something about this just being like the Disney like family action adventure show that just couldn't happen.
I mean, I also feel it may have happened if this were more than 6 episodes. I feel like they decided very intelligently that if we're doing 49-minute episodes, because both episodes have hit right at 49 minutes, we need to keep it to 6 episodes, or we might lose viewer interest. Where like WandaVision, it took more of that streaming approach to episode length and what they'd be willing to put out there. Because immediately introducing John Walker as the new Captain America, like, that seems like it moves too fast. Like, that felt too fast for me in the first episode. Like, it's been a day and they already betrayed Sam Wilson. This poor bastard.
Yeah.
But most people...
But there's a sense that, I will say that for me, just on that note of the betraying Sam Wilson thing, is there's this weird sense that, like, the government, I don't, like, whatever entity is in charge of this decision, the guy that we see take the shield from him at the Smithsonian and then announce the new Cap later in the episode, that whoever that guy represents, he has a line at the Smithsonian where he says, "We're glad you decided to come forward with the shield, Sam," as if he had like he was still considered a criminal until he handed the shield over to the Smithsonian, despite the fact that Captain America literally gave it to him. And there was this very, very weird sense that really landed later in the episode when they meet Isaiah and they're in Baltimore and they get harassed by the cops, and there's this entire idea that I hadn't even been thinking about as the show was going, is like there's Sam sees, like, feels very weird about this for very obvious reasons right now, and I can't believe that, like, I didn't consider that. And so there's the way in which he's being immediately treated like a criminal that feeds into this whole like racial like sub story that they're doing with him, and it's wild because that's the stuff that I think I didn't expect from this. You know, like the rest of it so far has seemed very, very tropey, story beat wise and things like that. But there's the ways in which it's handling some of these more newer elements are very cool.
I agree. I think that was that moment that was supposed to sell the fact that we've just met an African American super soldier in Isaiah Bradley, and then we see that Sam Wilson, even as an Avenger, he's not above the type of harassment. And the way that it's like, is he bothering you, sir? When Bucky was the one yelling at him? Like...
Yeah. Like,
and
as we know, Bucky's the more unstable one. Yeah.
Like, it really was. It was this, like, squicky thing where it's like, the government, the GRC, the Grand Reunification Council, who is weirdly in charge of Captain America, which I think we're going to see some information about later on down the line. But it did seem strange that he's not some U.S. agent, despite being John Walker, but that he seems to almost be a figurehead for this one particular section of the U.S. government, their Grand Reunification Council. It
would be as if Homeland Security adopted a superhero to become their mascot. Like, that's what it really feels like right now.
Yeah. I think that, and there's like another tonal disconnect for me regarding Falcon and Winter Soldier, is that he's out there doing missions, because by all like factors, he doesn't have the super soldier serum within him.
Who the John Walker? You mean? Yeah.
Like he does.
No. I mean, that's supposed to be the point, right? Like so far, what we know, like the idea is supposed to be that he is just a dude that just puts the suit on and can throw the shield real nice. Like that's it. That's all. Like that's his whole thing.
And
at least as far as we know.
And that would make sense why he would be the figurehead that we see Captain America as in the first Avenger, where he's touring Germany as a USO performer and inspiring the troops that way, and inspiring people back home to contribute to the war effort. Like,
right.
It almost makes sense where they're like, the superhero elements of Captain America, we have that covered. We have S.H.I.E.L.D. for that. We have Sword for that. What we need is a figurehead, something to unify people behind. So then the fact that he's out there in the field, like, it felt kind of strange to me.
I can kind of get that, but I will say two things about that. Like, the first thing is that when they had Steve back in 1945 and they were putting him on stage rather than sending him in, like, remember that, like, he had never been a soldier. He was not a soldier before that. He literally was he was thrown out, and then he was allowed in under the pretense that he would be changed, and then never got the chance to ever do anything after he got changed, right? Like he is at no point a soldier, whereas this guy has a history of it, a long history, and as far as we can tell right now, like an amazing one. I mean, you know, obviously, God knows what's going to happen with this going forward, because there's no way that they can let this guy stand as just they did not just introduce the new Captain America on this show for the rest of Marvel, right? Like that's the level I'm at the moment.
Well, the fact that he's John Walker, and if you've read a book, you know that John Walker is the U.S. agent. Like, very rarely is he ever called Captain America. There's a time where U.S. agent eventually adopts the moniker because he's like, I don't like how Captain America is doing it. He needs to be fighting for this country more. And then he becomes Captain America during the whole Nomad thing. God, I love comics. I just love comics. So, like,
right.
The second
for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is not the new Captain America.
No, there's no way this is gonna be him.
Yeah,
he's gonna become U.S. agent and he's gonna go crazy. That's what's gonna happen. Spoilers, probably. I might be wrong. He might be the new one. I mean, I love the actor. I'm a big fan of Russell Wyatt, but
yeah. So then the other point so there's that's going on. The idea that he's out doing missions, I'm okay with it because I already know that this is not the Captain America that is going to be around, was the one we loved. He's honestly at this point just plot fodder. Interesting plot fodder in that he's kind of playing like the meathead cop, like what that you always see in these detective buddy movies, is that there's always these two who are just kind of on the wrong side of the law, and then there's always that other team that's the clean team that is actually shadier than this. Like there's always that the opposing detective team, let me put it that way, and that's clearly who these two are, right? And so I'm okay with him being kind of one-dimensional at the moment, and because that's what that character is in the trope for the time being. Also, I trust that they're going to change that. The other side of that, though, is that he's only going on surefire win missions, it looks like, so far. And that's what makes the fuck up so bad with Falcon and Bucky, right? Is that the idea that when he shows up, by the time Captain America shows up, it should really just be kind of wrapped up. He gets a couple of punches in so that it looks good, and that so this is kind of like the propaganda of that time. It's just the problem is that we see it go wrong this time.
True. That's a good job, Sejan. Thank you for convincing me that it wasn't as strange as it was, because it did. Yeah. Like him on Good Morning America, I get that. I understand that. Him being over there, I don't get it. But they do show up once all of the big deal stuff has already been wrapped up. If they had run into him doing the recon before the mission, you're right. That would have definitely not tracked. But then coming in at the last moment as the Deus Ex Machina to like clean up the mess when it's already like all we have to do is empty the buckets because you guys already mopped up all the sick. That does speak more to what Captain America would be. And this version of Captain America, a non-Steve Rogers Captain America.
Right.
Not to discount what Bucky and Sam have done under the moniker, but yeah, in the MCU specifically. But I will say, in terms of John Walker, I was ready to hate him just off the bat because I was a big fan of U.S. Agent. He was a character that I liked because he was the choice that was used in one of the Capcom versus Marvel fighting games. It wasn't Captain America, it was U.S. Agent. And like the reason for that was licensing. Captain America was licensed out to Capcom at the time. It wasn't licensed out to Capcom. They were with another company. So they had to use the U.S. Agent name, and they just made him Captain America, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I understand it. Licensing is a real bitch. But I liked him in that game, and then I'm like, ooh, I want to learn more about him. And then I'm like, oh, no, U.S. Agent's a bad dude. Like, he is not a dude that I should be, like, a fan of. as like,
Yeah.
oh, he's Captain America in a black suit. No, he's much more than that, Devin, young Devin. And here's why. So when he shows up, I'm ready to hate him. And then that opening with him in the locker room and talking to Erwin, I can't think of his last name, Battlestar, which I don't want to say, Erwin Hoskins. Speaking to Erwin Hoskins, and like, I'm like, oh my God, I actually care about you. Like, that's good. Like, just not making you somebody I hate outright is very intelligent. It will make your eventual fall hurt that much more. But then they kind of fast forwarded his fall into this episode.
Well, I don't know if they have yet, because for me, as somebody that's not too aware of where it's going with him, but like obviously I know that it's not going to end well. But the idea that he's definitely letting things go to his head, and I'm learning very quickly that he's not to be trusted. But again, that was to be expected. I don't feel like I think he's anything bad at the moment, and if that's what he's going to be, maybe that's what he's going to be. But there's definitely this element of, I know that to not trust him, and I think they kind of needed to do that specifically for what I was saying, is that he can't be the new Captain America. So they need to let people kind of get it real quick that, don't worry, this guy is not sticking around. Because otherwise, if I was somebody that was not as invested in this as you and I are, if I was somebody that was coming at this as like, I love the movies and that was my introduction to this could possibly be a little like shaky for you to meet the new Captain America all of a sudden.
And to speak,
you know what I mean?
And to speak truth to theory, my mother, after we watched it, why did you guys groan after everything that the new Captain America said? And I'm like, well, for me, is because I know who John Walker is. So I'm sorry, I'll try to keep that to a minimum going forward. I'll try to keep my reactions more insular. I can't speak for Dale. And Dale's like, oh, I want to like him. But then he would say something like, I need his sidekicks to do this properly. Come on, be my wingman. And like, those are just douchey things that make me want to groan, Mom.
Yeah.
But that's my mother.
Yeah.
Someone who's seen all the movies but doesn't have that comic investment that I have, or just the investment in Captain America. I mean, Dale doesn't like Captain America either. She's not a fan of Captain America in the MCU. She will talk your ear off as to why he is unworthy of picking up Mjolnir in the final fight in Endgame. And let me tell you, it's some compelling arguments that she makes. So it's not just, he's not my Captain America for her. It is something very different on that level. And it's been very interesting to see how three different people with knowledge of at least this source universe have reacted to him.
Yeah, so I think that this show really does kind of find its own in him. And I think what's really interesting about that is this is Disney, Marvel, this is Disney Plus taking a swing at trying to prove they can do the Netflix Marvel style show, that it's okay that those shows don't exist anymore, because they can make those interesting, compelling shows with phenomenal like character actors that you know from everything, that they can come in and get them to like to basically break your brain in bringing these characters to life. And there's like this whole idea with them that like with Winter Soldier and Falcon that wasn't there in WandaVision, because it was such its own thing. WandaVision was so unique in what it was attempting to do, what it was emulating, or what it wasn't, like what it was like bringing to the table in that case. This show is so formulaic, and I think it starts with that idea of Disney being like, okay, we canceled Daredevil, we've got to do something that's very like Daredevil Defenders-esque next. We need to show people that we can keep that wheel rolling, and I think that it's not going to work as well. I think it's never going to be as good as some of the stuff that we saw in Daredevil or Punisher or Jessica Jones. God, the first season of Jessica Jones is something to be admired. And like, I just don't think we're going to get that out of this show, which is unfortunate. But that being said, the thing that Marvel always does well is you still have a good time. And it's been super fun so far. So like, I'm still in.
Yeah, I'm definitely not out. I will say that. But it's been interesting to see how they've played with my own knowledge and pitted it against me. But it's not like Daredevil, where after 3 episodes, I'm like, this isn't for me, which was hard as somebody who loves Daredevil. And like Jessica Jones, I mean, that one, Kristen Ritter was my big issue there. Like looking and seeing not Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23 was hard for me. I will admit that. And that's my own hang up. And then, you know, like I just never went back to it. So I don't know. I don't know. I think also the Purple Man. Yeah, that's it. I got fucked for that because I care about the Purple Man, and I didn't really love how they did the Purple Man in the first episode of that series. And I've been told it gets better, but I just can't shake that initial feeling. But I'm not going to feel that way about Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm in for all 6, and that's important to me.
Yeah, they've made it an extremely like enjoyable, digestible show, but it is definitely aiming for that level of like we're going to address modern issues, we're going to make these characters, we're going to flesh these characters out in really deep, interesting like ways that even if you're not familiar with the lore is going to become like huge for the lore going forward, and like it's. I applaud it. I'm super excited about it. I love Falcon. I love Winter Soldier. I mean, like I'm excited to see if they bring Agent 13 back into this and all that, right?
I think they're going to. I'd be surprised.
Right, like
she has that big blank screen in the end credits after you have a splash of the Falcon and a splash of the Winter Soldier with the actor names. I feel like they're gearing up for Sharon Carter to come back.
Yeah, so like there's going to be a lot of really good stuff that comes out of this, and I'm super excited for it. I just I don't know if it's going to have the same kind of punch and the same kind of like hooks that WandaVision seemed to have for everybody. And I think it's because Disney is not letting Disney is trying so hard to emulate a thing that already existed, rather than like with WandaVision where they did something so unique and so crazy.
True. I think now's a pretty good time to spiral to the other avian offering from Disney Plus this weekend.
I spiraled up it, man. Like let's just walk on over to the other good time I had today.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
The better time that I had. And I don't want to cast aspersions on Falcon and Winter Soldier, but if all 10 episodes of the Mighty Ducks Game Changers were available, I'd have already watched it 3 times.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought. Is it ended, and it's the first thing that I have seen ending on a week by week basis and then that's probably only because I didn't watch The Mandalorian week to week. I always wait for The Mandalorian to just finish. But this was the first time that I ended anything on Disney Plus, and I was just like, man, I wish there was another episode out now. Like I distinctly have to identify that this is the first time that happened.
Yeah, same here. Even though Mandalorian season 2, I'm like, I think I can switch over to week with this show after waiting to watch it all in one go. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, but Mighty Ducks Game Changers, I mean, historically, a month ago, we did a very special episode on the Mighty Ducks.
Yep.
And so we were already geared up to go into Game Changers. And then Game Changers happened, and it's so amazing. Everything about it is good. My favorite part, though, is that Riley from Letterkenny is the coach of the Mighty Ducks. He also he played an idiot on a kids show, like Nickelodeon style Canadian show called Some Assembly Required, and it was one of the first like Netflix grabs I remember when Netflix started getting quote unquote original programming. But as we've discussed many times on the show, they just went and bought shows that already existed just in other countries. And Some Assembly Required was one of those, and I remember like watching that show, and it's one of the worst shows. If I have not talked about it already on here, I like we should sometime, because it is horrendous, and like the concept is fucking bizarre and the acting is atrocious. So seeing his face in this, I was honestly a little worried. But now you're reminding me that I have actually seen him again in Letterkenny. Now I'm thinking, okay, and what he does in this episode is pitch perfect. Like he's like this weird, I want to punch him, and he's such an asshole, but also he's not aggressive.
You know what I mean? Like he doesn't. He's there are definitely some aggressive jerks in this episode, and it's really interesting because you think about like when we watched the first movie a month ago, the baddies in that movie are just hyper aggressive, right? So the fact that they've actually dialed some of that back for some of the villains, quote unquote villains in this story, is actually really cool.
Well, you know where the cool thing comes from that? I mean, ripping the Band-Aid off, spoilers for Mighty Ducks Game Changers. The Mighty Ducks is a bad guy.
What? Wait a minute. I gotta go back and rewatch this episode. Yeah, so the Ducks have gotten a little too big for their britches is the concept.
Which let's be honest. Let's be honest. If you win 3 games your inaugural season and somehow get a championship, and then the next year are sponsored by Hendrick Sporting Goods to be the bulk of the team, like USA hockey team,
USA hockey team
at the Junior Goodwill Games because the Olympics wanted nothing to fucking do with Mighty Ducks Part 2.
Their loss, but yeah.
I agree. You don't think I'd care so much more about the Olympics if they were like if it was the Junior Olympics during that movie, and if it could have been Russia instead of Iceland.
Yeah,
It's so Mighty Ducks 2. We're gonna do an episode on it eventually, but like. Oh, it turns out that when you're not a very good team and you luck your way into the championship with gimmick hockey, and then you somehow luck yourself into a world championship with gimmick hockey, that goes to your head.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful like the rebellion always becomes the evil empire moment, it is emblematic of the things that Game Changers does that I love so much. It really takes a look at the 90s Duck movies and really says, what would that world be like now? Like so in the ways in which people act, the ways in which people talk and behave, the things that people refer to and are like the idea that the kid has like a whole podcast on the Ducks, just on the Ducks is really like makes a lot of sense. I
felt a little attacked. Full disclosure, felt a little attacked by the podcaster.
Dude, that little kid is the most charming fucking actor in this entire thing, and you should feel honored that they put you in this show, Devin.
I mean, I think the kid who's playing Evan, he played Thor in Good Boys.
Yes.
So I'm just so happy to see him in something again because he's a great actor, and he is going to soar in this film, in this series.
He does amazing as the Joshua Jackson of this particular franchise, right? So like he has a lot of weight on his shoulders as being kind of like the kid, because one of the big things that we talked about with Mighty Ducks is that it's not a movie about the kids. It's more about the adults. Like it's weirdly more about like the adults, and like the kids are just kind of offhandedly mentioned in every scene. This definitely feels like it is about him and about like and his presence and his place in school and in the food chain and all that stuff. So I really appreciate how much they haven't forgotten there's the stuff with the parents and some very like quick, you want to talk about things happening a little too quickly for your liking in Falcon and Winter Soldier. There's some stuff going on with the parents in this one that I was like, whoa, that happened a lot faster than I thought it was going to. But anyway, he carries the weight of the other side of the story in this in a way that Joshua Jackson never had to until like D3. But it's been really, it was really cool watching this and seeing them kind of look at the world that was built in those first 3 movies and saying, how has that world changed and become kind of ours, to the point where Gordon Bombay has really become this wonderfully embittered like version of himself that, knowing his way of dealing with things from the first 3 movies makes total sense. He has not gone full whole hog off the deep end like I feel like Gordon Bombay would have before he had the Ducks in his life. But the fact that he has not had the Ducks in his life for the last, what are we to believe, 15, 20 years?
20 years. It's been 20 years.
Yeah. So the fact that he's not had the Ducks there in his life, he has still kind of started to swing back in that direction, but he's not gotten as bad as he was. So it's the worst thing he's doing is eating old cake, right? Like, in every scene, he has that cake with him everywhere.
They always order more cake than they need. That's actually true. but usually they
Man,
take the cake with them.
he is becoming an Estevez.
He is
Like,
his father.
yeah, it
So
is
he's becoming a
wild.
Sheen. It's
Yeah.
it's weirdly like, oh my god! Like he was talking in the first scene, and I'm like, you sound so much like your father that like I need to remind myself that you are Emilio Estevez.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
but man, it's good to see him. Missed him. Like considering everything that's gone down with Charlie Sheen over the last 20 years, it was real nice to have the sane one on screen again.
the show's so freaking good.
Yeah.
Why is it so freaking good?
Well, part of it is because the material is once again, as I was saying with Falcon Winter Soldier, super tropey, but it's being handled in a very intelligent way. Like the people that have the worst lines, like are Lauren Graham, who I mean, knocks them out of the park because she's Lauren Graham. Like she's so even though she's playing this really oversimplified like mother figure that I really hope they kind of really go a lot further with. Although I'm confused why we couldn't hear more of her backstory and instead got a coffee machine joke in the middle of that. I don't know what that was all about because that really would have helped me care more about her. But like she still carries the character fantastically because she's just great like that. And so you have Emilio Estevez, you have even the group of kids that they got are all really like just fun to like watch them be on screen together.
I mean, what this show did for me, and you can listen to our very special episode from a month ago to see my biggest problem with the Mighty Ducks, is the fact that this is Minnesota hockey. People would give a damn about Minnesota hockey. And, like,
Yeah.
yes, the idea of the tiger parent in terms of, sports and the way that kids are pushed way outside of their limits in sports right now, hoping to get some type of sponsorship, like, that makes perfect sense too to be reflected. But also the fact that like you could get cut from a Pee-wee team. I was so happy to see that happen because
Yeah.
in Minnesota that happens.
Yeah.
I know that you're moving to 12 to 14, but like earlier than that it could have happened.
Yeah. Well, and so I was going to say that it feels like this show really addresses a lot of that sort of stuff that you felt with in that whereas I was commenting at the time that on the first movie that like the hockey looks like actual hockey. It's not like a basketball game where it seems like there's only ever three people playing in anytime you watch a movie. But anyway, I thought the hockey looked really, really well done. But you pointed out, well, okay, but all of the business shit around the hockey is complete and utter fucking nonsense. And we pulled that apart. And like, no doubt, it definitely was. Whereas in this one, it does feel like it's paying a lot more respect to the culture, not just the game.
And I can support that because someone on my Facebook feed who's a hockey mom signaled all of her hockey mom friends that like, remember that this came out today. I've watched the first episode. It nailed the culture. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that's a little scary that
Yeah.
like that type of stuff really happens.
Yeah.
Like I can't
And
imagine having a trainer at like
Yeah.
11 or 12.
As somebody that has known a couple of athletes in that lived that life, more in the gymnastics and track side than hockey, I will say, but it is not kind to your body or your brain. There's a lot of people that I have met in that world that don't come out the other side without an issue or two. And so like it's something that has to be talked about, like that sort of stuff, right? And I think of there's a really, really amazing episode of Early Modern Family, I think like season 3 or 4, where Alex goes to therapy and her mom has to go into school for her for the day. I'm trying to remember the exact tag, but the whole thing is at the end of it, her mom comes home and is like, I cannot believe the challenging life that you lead. And it's one of the most beautiful moments on that show. Alex just loses her shit and starts like bawling her eyes out in her mom's arms because like she deals with like this stuff. And it was one of the first times where me and my friend groups watching it at that time really felt ever addressed something like that for like a show about like purportedly a modern family, like it really was this kind of modern thing that people just weren't talking about. And so applying that concept to things like sports and stuff now, like I'm so surprised that it's willing to take such a strong stance against something that to me is represented by a lot of the supposed audience for this thing, you know. I was amazed at that. And then on top of that, the overall messaging of being like, sometimes it's not about being the best, sometimes it's just about having fun. I don't know of any other sports movie that really does that, at least not one that comes to mind. I don't know, the idea of like these kids are probably only going to win a couple of games and that's okay. And she says, and Lauren Graham says this in front of the kids. Like the kids are with her on this idea that like, yeah, we're probably not going to be the best. And there's something really weirdly refreshing about that it's not that spoiled, like upsetting idea that no, these kids are going to be the best, which means that if you're a kid in the audience who's not the best, you feel kind of really left out of that story.
Yeah, it's what really worked about that for me is that's what Little League and Pee Wee hockey and all of that is supposed to be about. It's intramural. It's not hyper competitive. It is about having fun. And then like that's why they have all-stars in Little League. And the people who are the best at Little League can try out and make an all-star team who actually goes and competes against other towns and that way. But like it's not supposed to be the end-all be-all in like community sports.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't agree with this. I'm only saying this just to make sure that this side is presented. But this is what leads to the idea of people talking about problems with participation trophies though, right? Mm-hmm. Like is the idea that like, yeah, it is supposed to be all fun and games, but if we let a kid get on the field and don't critique them, I don't know what the tools are supposed to be here, right? Because when people say that sort of stuff, of that idea of they were like your kids are supposed to be learning to improve, learning to better themselves. So if we just tell everybody that they're just great for showing up, we're not doing them any favors. And it's just like, okay, but there's where is the moment where it goes from like it's more than just saying, yay, you showed up, but also like, hey, you're partaking, you're improving, you're growing, you're doing that, right? And so I'm interested to see where this story lands on this idea, because right now it still feels like inevitably it could become about them winning the championship. You know what I mean? It's great that they're throwing all of this stuff out in the first episode, but I will be more impressed if they somehow maintain this attitude for the entire series, that it is not about being the best, it is about showing up and playing the game well. We'll see.
Well, I really hope that is what happens. I mean, I hope that they change the game, not to give the title as the plot of it, but I hope that they make these people realize that like at this level it's supposed to be about having fun.
Yeah.
Because like that's when I stopped playing baseball, is when I stopped having fun playing baseball. And I was never very good at baseball, but like I stopped having fun. So I stopped. I stopped playing basketball because I was on a winning team, but like we lost one game right before the playoffs. We lost the game and it was by like 2 points. Like it wasn't a huge loss, and we still had we still went on to win the championship, but like people on my team crying, like full tears, like unable to deal with the fact that they had lost. And like I didn't know what to do in that situation, because like losing is part of the game.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and there's something to be said about the fact that like this is kind of the moral we're supposed to learn from Gordon's story in the first movie, is he's so concerned about being the best, and that he sees it as a real punishment taking on this quote unquote loser team. Like that's that is supposed to be the kind of the idea, but it's muddy, right? Like we talked about it, like the idea that that they kind of go from this like loser team to suddenly winning the championships that year is a little absurd, right? And this seems like a much more palatable way to take in that moral, because that felt kind of like slapped on. That moral felt slapped on in the first movie. This makes it feel like it's actually ingrained in the story.
Agreed. And I don't know, I'm excited to see more of it.
Yeah.
Just because of the people, they're so lovely. Like
Yeah.
all the players on the team, like even those who haven't had like their big moments yet, I'm invested enough in them to like get to see what that means.
I'm excited to see what happens with. There's a couple of side characters that they've introduced as being interested in being on the team, and the idea that right now the team is just 6 kids. Like I actually am like curious to see, like, is this about the team growing, right, and them getting more and more people on their side? Like, I love that, right? And that is going to have to be a lot of, again, heavy lifting on the child actors in this. And we talked about the child actors in the original series being actually like nothing to turn your nose up at, like really good work done by the kids in those movies. But this is just really interesting to watch, because I as we mentioned already, like we've got 2 or 3 child actors in this that are just like super great at handling what's already been given to them. And I'm excited to see like when they get like the popular girl onto the team, and if they can ever turn that girl that's already on the Ducks over to them and stuff. Like it's going to be real fun.
Yeah, it should be an exciting adventure. And it will be even more exciting when they start introducing former players. Because seeing Gordon Bombay, that was awesome. But the marketing for this has been a lot of, oh, look at that, it's Kenny Ortega, or it's Connie Moreau, or it's Guy Germain. I don't know why I said Guy. I got in my own head about that. Like, the marketing has shown them alongside Gordon Bombay. So yeah. I feel like each episode is probably going to have one or more of them come in to teach them about how to play the game.
Yeah.
And that
different elements of it and stuff. Like, yeah. Oh, good stuff, man.
It's very good. However, even as we talk about all this exciting stuff, a dangerous conspiracy theory hath emerged regarding Disney.
Oh,
and
no.
One of the most desired pieces of electronic hardware currently on the market.
The PS5?
The PS5.
What is going on with Disney and the PS5?
So, Mighty Ducks Game Changers, their goalie, Coob13, he's only a really good goalie in a virtual space. I mean, he showed that he has good like reflexes and he blocked all their stuff, but the reason they find him is because they're playing online against him, and both of them are playing on PS5s. And earlier this same week, in the 101st episode of American Housewife, episode 13 of this 5th season, Oliver was playing on a PlayStation 5. So these PlayStation 5s, this PlayStation 5 shortage, Disney has all the PS5s, Sejan. I'm Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Got something problematic to say about gypsies? Let's talk about that. So this is fucking ridiculous, because my understanding of video games in any TV show is that they're never real. I never believe that video games are real.
You should never believe that video games are real. That's the right thing to have when it comes to... I've been watching Mom recently. I'm not ready to talk about Mom yet because it's so good, but I want to finish it before I give my thoughts on Mom.
Yeah, you mean the Anna Faris?
The Anna Faris, Allison Janney.
Allison Janney show.
Which
yeah.
It's fantastic. I mean, like, right now we've gone through 3 seasons, and I am absolutely in love with it. But there's a episode in season, like, end of season 2 or beginning of season 3, where her son Roscoe is playing a game, and he's very clearly holding a PS2 controller, and it's connected to a slim PS2, and I was so, like, happy with how they handled that, like, because based on their socioeconomic status, the kid would have a PS2. Yeah. I don't care that this show is being made when the PS3 is out there, or the Xbox 360 is out there. he would still be rocking a PS2 because she's trying to provide for her kid and will provide however she can. And then it made sense that his father, once he became like rich and successful, bought him an Xbox 360, and that was a whole issue between them. Like, you're trying to buy our son's love and affection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, you talk about you can't trust video games, and if you ever see game footage in a TV show, unless it's Trinkets where they're playing Killer Instinct on the Xbox One, and the thing to remember about that is that that's real game footage, but it's unfucking believable that a bunch of high schoolers in 2017 get together at parties and play Killer Instinct. Nobody is playing Killer Instinct on the Xbox One.
A game that pooped out so fast that I honestly forgot. Didn't they have the whole like subscription for fighters thing going for them?
You had to buy every fighter. Yeah. Like, yeah. I don't know. It's on Game Pass. I could try it, but I'm not going
Killer
to.
Instinct, yeah. Man.
But you're not wrong. It's one of those things where like you don't believe it. And clearly the hockey game footage on display in Game Changers is not real. Like it's not some game. I can't point to it and be like, oh, that's NHL 2001. I mean,
right.
2020, 2021. That's not what it is. But they are holding a PlayStation 5 controller. And then Coop 13 is holding a PlayStation 5 controller. And then in American Housewife, like Oliver Cooper is a friend of Oliver's who's now living with the Ottos, and he is very rich. So he redid their basement to be a tiny apartment for them to live in. So it would like make sense that he would have gotten a PlayStation 5, and that's what Oliver would be playing. And that's another one where I gave them a lot of credit because they always had an Xbox One controller on the table, like the coffee table. And okay. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that they would have one of those, right? They wouldn't have the newest thing, but I could see one of the kids wanting it at some time and it's still having remnants in the house. Like, and no, they wouldn't have gotten the newer one because they have other things. But all the PS5 being in these Disney shows, it made me stop and think. Because
maybe it's
they
just
own
one
everything
that they
else.
Just keep touting to every like different location.
Siegen, I don't want to be too alarmist. I don't want to jump to extremes. I'm not Billy Joel. But I believe that the Disney accumulation of PlayStation 5s, is how Sony was able to hold on to Spider-Man. This was the final line item that we questioned. There has to be something else. What could that something else be? It was the PS5s for everyone who works at Disney.
I bet, you know what it is? If the rumors are true about the new Spider-Man and the idea that he's going to meet past Spider-Man and Gwen and Mary Jane's and stuff, for every like Spider-Man that they could get into the movie, Disney, they were just like, we're going to go back and we're going to buy a PS5 from you, but for every PS5 we buy, we also get a Spider-Man at the same time.
All right, you can buy the PS5s from us, $50,000.
Just the back of a truck with just Spider-Mans and PS5s. Just open it up.
The weirdest exchange of goods ever. I'll have a PS5, and then they give you a Spider-Man to go, oh, it's scary. I'm scared by this spider trafficking that you've built for us. But it's a theory that like is just a little too many Disney-owned properties using PS5s. But also,
do you want Drake Bell Spider-Man? No, never. We don't need that many.
No, never. I'll take Diedrich Bader doing a Spider-Man voice as like a weird Batman Spider-Man. But yeah, that's just something I noticed. But you'd also know what that speaks to because it's Disney. I mean, like really, well, not just synergy, but yes. I mean, really, all they need to do is buy a controller, right? You buy a controller and then it's a prop on the show. And people like me notice the prop on the show and think, oh, they have a PS5, right? That's all it is.
Right.
But that speaks a lot to Disney, of all people, who has their fingers on the pulse because they want to have the biggest market appeal as possible. They have sided with the PlayStation 5 in this new console generation.
Yeah.
And that's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, all I ever think of is the conversation in Tropic Thunder of like whatever technology porn goes with, that's going to be the winner. But I mean, Disney is a just as equally good moniker, I think. like,
Well, I mean,
marker
Disney
it.
and porn are the two great things to follow, which brings me to we can't have a show. We can't do a podcast where one
Oh,
of us
all
is
right.
located in Utah and
Oh,
not
oh.
talk about this potential ban on porn going on in your state, Siegen. How do you feel
Look,
about this?
there's there is a lot of weird stuff in Utah when it comes to state laws that I am still wrapping my head around. I have we ever really talked about like the drinking laws and stuff out here
Oh,
and the like the
you've
fight to allow 5% alcohols in grocery stores and things like that.
every time
Yeah,
you tell
so
me about the alcohol laws in Utah, I'm convinced you're trying to trick me. It is like I'm like, Siege's got to be gaslighting me. Alcohol's
yeah,
a
it's
major
crazy.
industry. How could a state survive?
Well, especially a libertarian state, one that really embraces the idea of every man should be able to make a name for himself, but then also we're going to allow the government to make a bunch of restrictions on what that guy can do with. But anyway, the way that it is often defended is people talk about how all of these laws, including the stuff that they're talking about with the porn laws, are things that exist in other places, other states. And they say, see, other people do it. We're not the only ones doing it. I don't know why you call us authoritarian when other states do it. Other states do it. But much like with the drinking laws, it's not that every law is unique. It's the quantity of them that is unique for all of the like the drinking laws that we have. For instance, like the one that you need to order food as well as a drink. You can't just be served alcohol. You have to also be eating an appetizer or a side or something at minimum. And so Connecticut has some weird places with laws like this, right? And the way that it usually gets put, the way that they kind of skirt around it is they tell you that your drink is $4, but there's like a side of fries that comes with it that is $6, and you don't get to say I don't want the fries. It just comes with a side of fries. You don't even have to fucking eat the fries. That's not the point. The point is they have to be able to show that they sold you a thing of fries along with that drink. And the fries cost fucking nothing. $6 for a side of fries is ridiculous. But you take $3 or $4 out of that fry and you apply it to the drink, and suddenly that deal makes more sense, right? And that is a lot of what you see out here is you get a law like that, and people find a way to kind of like eke around it. And so Utah just has all of these like the quantity of laws that Utah will put in place in order to oppress a thing. That is where it starts to feel really upsettingly like crushing in a lot of these industries, and like it literally crushes creativity. Like the amount of interesting beer that has been able to come out over the last 6 months since they allowed 0.5% more alcohol in grocery store beer, it's amazing. Like we've been able to get other brewers from states around us to send stuff in. We've been able to have so much more like variety and interesting things just at the grocery store and at the liquor store, which are also state run. We've talked. There's this idea that like they'll bring in a variety of some kind and they'll only buy like 3 or 4 cans, literal cans, because you can only buy beer by the can here. You can't buy a 6-pack or bottle. You can buy it by the bottle, but not a 6-pack. And they'll only bring in 3 or 4 cans of a flavor, claim it didn't sell well, and then eliminate it from the whole state. They just won't sell it in the state. And so there's this weird amount of control that it has over that. So anyway, what this has to do with porn is a lot of this sort of same idea is going to start being applied to pornography. They're going to go out and they're going to find all of these different laws all over the country that are in place for pornography, and they're going to claim that these are not authoritarian laws, that these are laws, that common sense laws that already exist, and they're going to point to all these states that already do these things. But what they're not going to mention is that, yeah, they're pointing to 8 states that have these laws in place, but not all 8 states have all of the same laws. And so like it's gonna be a madhouse because, as you pointed out, there's money to be made. Why would you be stopping all of this money? And it's insane. The reasons behind it can only be like religious and Puritanian, and they don't want to admit that, and it's crazy.
I mean, I will give them credit. The argument they're making that won't somebody think of the children, right?
Yeah.
Like the weirdest thing for me is that arguments about porn and its availability are not new, right? I'm very familiar with an episode of Designing Women. Julia drives through the First Amendment because she is upset that there is a newsstand by the sugar baker's office that has a woman scantily clad promoting pornographic magazines, and she drives through that sign 3-4 times and is willing to get arrested every time, pay the fine, and ultimately pay to have that sign replaced, right? Like, it's this vicious cycle for her. And it's one of these very strange episodes of Designing Women where Julia Sugarbaker is wrong. And that's blatantly, that's not what happens. Julia Sugarbaker usually takes up these causes that, like, we should be talking about AIDS and introducing kids to alternatives and ways to protect themselves having sex. Like, that's an episode that's very strong and means a lot in Designing Women and to me personally. But Julia drives through the First Amendment like she has a sit down with the woman who runs the porn magazine. And first of all, she's surprised that it's a woman who's running it. And she goes on about how all it's exploitation and all this other stuff. And that woman's undeterred because she's like, it's my First Amendment rights. And, you know, I'm making money and people want to buy it. Like, I'm just finding an industry and fulfilling that need.
And well, what it also is it's two sides of feminism present in the early 90s of you have a woman that's feeling empowered, not just because of the money, but also because of being the center of what's happening. And she feels like she has control over that. And, you know, say what you will, I don't make it to sound like I disagree with that. I think that there's a definite argument for that side of feminism to be made. And I think that's all Designing Women is doing in that moment. As much as I think you're right, this is one of the rare times that she's wrong. I don't think she has to be right for the point to be still a good one.
It's nice because it makes the point. And honestly, every episode of Designing Women, whether or not she's right or wrong in what they're talking about, they have a discussion. They introduce the discussion. And honestly, we could use some more Designing Women living room discussions on these topics that, like, even if you talk about it, you're a bad guy. Like, how dare you even deign to talk about that subject? Like, we need to be able to discuss things and actually have a conversation without fear of that conversation having, you know, consequences.
For sure. I mean, there are some people that think they deserve to be part of the discussion that don't, and I will stand by that.
You're not wrong about that either. But asking questions, like having a question and asking that question, like that can't automatically be like, well, now you're canceled because how dare you ever think that? Like, how dare you try to get into the mind of the people who might be defending this argument? You're just as bad as them. Like, no, we're trying to get to the bottom of it. And also, being somebody who seeks to answer that question, that also doesn't vilify them because they might be playing devil's advocate on a topic. This is not where I thought this was going to go, but it's true. It's just an honest statement. And Utah saying, won't somebody think of the children? But also, and this is the thing where, like, I'm not afraid of it, but again, I don't live there, right? Which is why I wanted to speak with you about it. Their stuff only goes into effect if 4 other states ratify the same law about blocking porn on the hardware level of new cell phones.
I mean, like, yeah, and the other problem with that is that they're going up against big tech, and that's a very bad idea in Utah. Silicon Valley is like huge. Like the fact that they're moving out this way, it's Silicon Slopes now. And I believe I've actually used that term on here before. And like that is so to take such a hard stance against the biggest growing industry in the area is a poor choice, one might say, even from like a business side. So there's a lot of people out here that are also, while they may be conservative in their values, they're not stupid. They're not going to piss off the billion-dollar industry that is moving into the area and driving like housing prices through the roof and things like that. Like it's not going to, I don't believe it's going to go anywhere because of the fact that first of all, there's a progressive argument to be made for not allowing it, and there is also a conservative argument to be made for not allowing it. So like it's got no legs. But out here, they're very, very happy to pay lip service to those kinds of ideas and thoughts because they know full well that it inevitably will go anywhere, but they'll get to still talk about it for the next 2 years. And it'll be the thing that lets them keep going until they find the next issue for them to then be proud about talking about for 2 more years.
Yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, politics are a shell game. Whether or not you achieve the goals that you set out, you can always say, this is the goal that I went for. And the only reason it didn't happen was because of other voters.
Yeah.
Other people like you. It's
Yeah.
sort of what the recycling and the plastic industry, by putting it all on us, the consumer, to recycle plastic, they get to like wash their hands of just how toxic their industry is for our environment.
Oh yeah, like when Coke is out there reminding you to recycle, like it's like motherfucker, like why don't you do some legwork here as well? Again, billion-dollar company, like kind of dictating the conversation there. But yeah, Utah is very odd in the ways in which it really purports to be like the Wild West still out here, and every man has the potential out here. Every man has the potential out here to really make a name for themselves and a difference and a choice and all of that. Like that is the Utah attitude to a T. But then every time rubber hits the road out here, the first thing that they want to do is tell everybody how to live their lives. And I'm not, this is not me like stating some huge manifesto against like the way that Utah runs their shit, because I have benefited greatly in this environment, and that I work for a really interesting small tech company that does have the decision to treat its employees really well, and I'm lucky enough that it makes that decision. And like it's been a wild ride being out here, and this being kind of the most prosperous like life that I've had, all under the umbrella of knowing that the government that runs the state has some thoughts and opinions and makes some moves and some actions that I really, really have to speak out against from time to time. It's been very eye-opening.
Good. I'm glad that this actually worked out, because I heard about it and I'm like, I really want to ask Sejan about that. Should I spring it on him on the show? I'm gonna do
Well,
it.
and they put like kind of like half restrictions in place a few years back, so like I can't even like go onto Newgrounds anymore without a state of Utah warning that says like, you agree that you were over the age of 18. We noticed you were in the state of Utah. Can you click this thing to tell us you're over age? Like, yeah, sure, okay. And like I said, I can't, like that's on sites that have the potential for having adult material on them. Not on things like YouTube, I will point out, which notoriously has like hidden porn on it and things like that. So there's just I was kind of feeling this weirdness the other day, because I think that I told you, Dev, that I've got weird like restrictions on my like YouTube and Google when I'm on my work computer, which is not anybody out there that owns a work computer. It's not weird for the company to have like its own restrictive stuff in place. It was just weird for me because the company that I work for, that had not been a thing before. But once they started, I was all working from home, and so everybody had a computer at home and they had to keep an eye on everybody's shit. It wasn't just 2 or 3 people working from home every couple of days. It became this thing where they wanted more conformity across the board, and so they put a bunch of weird restrictions in place. So like I couldn't even listen to our show on YouTube once they put those restrictions in place. We couldn't even go to our work's website. Like the weird ways in which they were like auto like banning sites and searches and stuff like that were just crazy. And so, yeah, so Utah, state of Utah, runs like a lot of weird shit that way when it comes to web presence. They'll just throw like a mass censorship out there, essentially, of different web pages and things like that. And so far, it's just been as simple as saying, yes, I understand, like I take responsibility, or whatever nonsense is in those disclaimers, and then you click enter and you go, and then I can watch my stupid fucking 1999 Newgrounds cartoons, but while I sit at work. But like there's so that's already something that's already been in place. So honestly, like this news about them going even further with it sucks and is not surprising to me. But that's the other thing that they do, is they kind of just they let the issue come out like all the time, and it basically becomes like white noise, because it's never a big splash, so it's not everybody's talking about it. It's just you hear enough about it that you're aware, but it's never so much that you do anything about it. And then after a while, you just become numb to it, and then that's when they make their big move. And then suddenly, like all of a sudden, alcohol, you're not allowed to buy wine in grocery stores out here.
Well, we're not allowed to buy wine in grocery stores here, so it's hard for me to feel bad for you.
But you also have a liquor store every 10 feet that is allowed to be open in its own business times that it feels fit to be open.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? That's the thing, is they go, but Rhode Island doesn't allow you to buy alcohol in stores either. You can't be mad at us for not allowing that. And it's like, yeah, no, we get that. But what Rhode Island then does do is it makes up for it with these other laws that allow these things to still happen.
You could throw a rock in Rhode Island, hit 3 liquor stores.
Exactly. So they could point to Rhode Island and they could say, well, they got that law in place. It's okay. And it's like, yeah, but that's not quite right.
That's true. That's interesting. All right. I have some blitz topics that I want to hit. What do you want? 1, 2, or 3?
3.
All right. Skittles gummies. They've taken the chewy Skittle and they've made them chewy gummies. Is this redundant? I think so. I think it's a little redundant. I've been munching on them during the whole episode. They're delicious. They really feel like Skittles for Grandpa. Like, I'm reminded of an episode of Seinfeld where Kramer goes to the dentist and he's like, how did it go? And he goes, I just got to lay off the Skittles. And I'm like, yeah, because Skittles, that'd be bad for your teeth, right? Like, they're a different type of chewy. And then I bought the Skittles gummies because, like, I had to try them. And I'm like, oh, it's all the flavor of Skittles, but I don't feel like I'm going to rip out a filling. But
Skittles are really grainy for me.
I get that. I understand that. The hard candy shell.
Well, and like the sugary inside, like as it melts, doesn't melt like smooth. It's not like smooth chocolate melting, right?
Right.
There's so there's like a graininess to it. So, sorry, that is my drink that I was trying to not drink into the microphone. Okay. Instead, I just whacked it. So Skittles gummies intrigues me.
They're great. They're delicious. I recommend first of all, wild berry Skittles in the Devin Decker world are the superior Skittle. Just the flavors on display. But then when you're going to talk about what you want in a gummy candy, melon, cherry, strawberry, blue raspberry, and berry punch, which it's sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it.
What would you recommend to a man that prefers wax soda bottle candy?
Oh, if you're a wax soda bottle candy person, I definitely go with the tropical Skittles. And if you can find them, there's a yellow bag of Skittles. I don't know the name of it, but that also has the wax candy flavoring. But the tropical Skittles has more of, it's like the highlight flavors that you kind of get with the liquid inside of wax soda bottles. Fuck you, Siege, and I can answer any question about candy. I don't purport to be an expert, but I've done a lot of research on candy.
I don't think I ever truly understood how the wax soda bottle candy works. Like even to this day, I don't. But I remember when I was a kid, what we used to do is we would buy like strips of them because they were wax, so they'd be kind of attached together. And I would shove like 3 in my mouth, and then like I would have like a ball of wax that I inevitably would just throw out like gum.
Right. So what you're supposed to do with the wax soda bottle, right? This is fun. Wax soda bottles teach you how to shotgun a beer. That's what they. I don't have any proof that that's why they exist, but you want to learn how to shotgun a beer, you buy yourself some wax soda bottles. Because what you do is you take a needle, right? And it can be any needle. It could be the needle that you use to pierce your ear with. It could be the back of your Misfits pin. Really, I'm imagining a lot of punks drinking wax soda bottles, it turns out. And you pop a hole in the top where the bottle top is, and then you put it in your mouth. I don't know why I'm miming this. And then you pop a hole in the bottom of the bottle, and all of the juice shoots into your mouth and down your throat, and you get that beautiful flavor, and then you throw the wax away.
So at any point, it's not okay. At any point, do teeth touch wax in your scenario?
No, you should not be eating or chewing the wax bottles.
Okay.
The only way that would
I'm gonna write this down.
The only way that would come into it is you don't have a needle. And honestly, you should always have something sharp if you're eating wax soda bottles. Like that's rule 1. You must have something sharp. But if you bite the neck of the bottle and pull straight, that should open up enough of a hole that you can empty the flavored reservoir into your mouth.
Okay, so they really were just like a vehicle for juices.
Yeah, for like
Okay.
sugar, for basically colored sugar,
Okay.
really. But that waxiness, I mean, it still kind of lingers on the flavors in there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the colors, specifically, the reason why I recommend tropical Skittles if you're trying to get the wax soda bottle experience is because it has the blue, like the bright blue, pastel blue. It has the banana yellow. It has a bright green, a bright orange. Like it's almost pastels, the
Yeah.
tropical Skittles.
Wax
And
candy speaks of a time in which we hated children as a society.
wax candy speaks to a time where we're gonna sell kids whatever because we want their fucking money.
Yeah. So
And
Skittles, right?
so yeah, so Skittles. I don't recommend the regular Skittles gummies, and the only reason why, ironically enough, is because long ago, they replaced the green Skittle with green apple instead of lime.
Mm.
Green apple doesn't really work in a gummy form for me. I'm gonna just be
Oh,
honest. And it doesn't mix well with the citrusy landscape that you're kind of cultivating with
right.
original Skittles.
So if you try to do the fruit salad move of like one of each flavor right into
Yeah,
your mouth, it doesn't play well with others.
all
I
you have
got
is
that.
green apple in your mouth. And it's like, I want green apple in a Jolly Rancher, not in a Skittle. So, I mean, I've tried both of them. I have another bag of the wild berry Skittles gummies, and
Yeah.
I'll probably try to have a bag of them nearby because they're delicious. But Skittles gummies, weird thing that like kind of works. But it's not
I
like,
got.
remember when Lifesavers gummies came out? Like that
Yes.
makes sense. That was a hard candy becoming a soft candy. A soft candy becoming a softer candy. What's next? Gummy M&Ms? I would actually probably love a gummy M&M.
I saw gummy circus peanuts the other day, and that was really weird because I feel like you've actually gone in the other direction. You've taken what is a normally like soft candy that literally just melts in your mouth the second you bite into it because it's just marshmallow,
Yeah.
but like meringue marshmallow, yeah. But anyway, so that like that idea of it then being in gummy form was nonsense to me.
Well, you know what it is? It's that circus peanuts don't keep. Like regular circus peanuts don't keep because of that meringue marshmallow texture that they're comprised of. So
Yeah.
by making them gummy, you're just giving them a longer shelf life.
Fair enough.
That's right, Devin Decker. Not an expert, but I know candy. I can
Candy
answer
man can.
candy questions. All right, so I'm gonna take the second one because the final one is the one I want to end on, and
Fair
that's
enough.
Mario Tennis Aces. I'm holding it
Yeah.
in my hands right now.
Why?
Why? Oh, because I bought it. First of all, I was mad at Target because they had it on sale for $25. And then when I bought it, they canceled it and said there was a pricing error on this. Actually, what they said was, we're sold out of Mario Tennis Aces. And then 5 minutes later, it was back up on their website for $40. So it was really a pricing error, and they lied to me. But then, here's the problem. Here's the reason why Devin Decker owns Mario Tennis Aces. This June, Mario Golf comes out
Hmm.
for the Switch.
Yeah, and I am excited.
Oh.
Beyond. Whoa, I am so excited. Like,
I'm all
shaking
in.
now that you
I am
mentioned it.
all in for Mario Golf. And like Mario Golf is one of those games that I buy and I play like 2-3 courses and then I get a little bit bored.
And then you put it away for like a couple of months, and then one day you're just like, "Hey, everybody's out of the house today, and I'm a little drunk. What are we gonna do? I'm gonna play around in Mario Golf."
Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, the one for GameCube.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get past the first course that introduces fast rough, where you land on the rough and you go like a million dicks an hour.
Mario Golf 64 was really kind of my last hurrah. Like, it was another one of those 64 games, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Mario Golf 64 is really, really good. Like, I went
Yeah.
back later and played Mario Golf 64, and I'm like, oh, I understand why everybody was so into Toadstool Tour when it came out.
Yeah.
And then the things that they did to make it, like, new and different sort of ruined the game.
Oh, the Nintendo did then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Yeah.
And Mario
do that
Golf
sometimes.
on the Game Boy Color, like, that's really good to the fact that Golf Story came out. And, like, I'm probably going to get Golf Story and play through Golf Story to get excited for Mario Golf coming out this summer.
Nice.
That's something that I'm looking at, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to wind up doing this. But I wanted to get into the mindset of Mario sports again, because the GameCube had so many that they really kind of flanderized the idea of Mario playing sports.
Well, and they also ripped Mario Kart out of that and made it so much its own thing that I wouldn't call it one of the sports games anymore. But I would have back then. I mean, Mario Kart Double Dash and stuff like that. So like they don't do like crazy shit to it like Double Dash did, where they were like, "There's two people in the car now." So they kind of left it to die for a while because they took the best, like the most popular bestseller out of it and made it such its own thing that Mario Sports kind of just became kind of silly.
Yeah. So I'm excited for Mario Golf, mostly because Wario's wearing a cowboy hat. I'm not going to lie. So I'm like, I want to try Mario Tennis, and the price was right briefly, and then the price, I ended up getting it for $30. I found it somewhere for $30, so I'm happy about that.
Good.
And I loaded up Mario Tennis Aces. It's a great game.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God, is it a great game?
Yeah, I got a lot of praise when it came out. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not as big a fan of Mario Tennis as I am this. So I've played Mario Aces a few times with friends that have it on their Switch, and it's the perfect game for me at that level of like knowing somebody that owns it, so that if I want to play it, I can call them up and be like, "Hey, you want to hang out and play Mario Golf? Sorry, Mario Tennis." Like, and we can do that. That's great, but I don't need it. I don't need it on my shelf.
That's a little disappointing because it's the adventure single player mode that really sings in Mario Tennis Aces. Because Wario and Waluigi find a magic tennis racket that possesses them and regular Luigi. So it's up to Mario to track down the Infinity Stones, called the Power Stones in this universe, to
Chaos
stop
Emeralds,
them from
right,
being put into the tennis racket, which calls itself Lucian. And if you collect the 5 Power Stones before the tennis racket's minions do.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
so like there's boss fights, and I think the thing that really worked for me is, so every match of tennis that's like competitive in the game, you have to win 2 sets. It's 2-set best of 3 matches.
Okay.
So that's a lot of tennis. But knowing that like people might not be interested in that, there's also a system where you can break the other player's racket. And if you break all their tennis rackets, you win by knockout. And like that's where Mario Tennis Aces really shone for me.
That's amazing.
Like I'm like, oh my God, you turned this into a fighting game with tennis. How did you do that? And also the characters that you can play as a chain chomp.
Well, the Mario sports games have always been great for that. Like I mean, Mario Kart, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis. Even the soccer one that they did that I think was
Superstar Strikers. The amount of players in that, like that's what I felt when I loaded up, because I just played as Mario. I played through the Mario single player campaign, and then I'm like, who else is available to play as? Because in that you play against a Shy Guy, you fight a Spike, you fight a Blooper, you fight a Chain Chomp, you fight Boom Boom. So I'm like, do I get to play as them, or are they just like fun things for the adventure mode? And no, all of them are there. Pauline is a playable character, even though she doesn't show up in the story at all, or at least she hasn't, because there's post game that I was doing a little bit before we started, and then I got frustrated with because I got 29 out of 30, and then freaking Ghost Mario was able to return one of my shots that he shouldn't have been able to. I don't know. I have video footage, Nintendo.
I mean, he is a ghost, so what are you gonna do?
I don't know, man. I don't know why you're taking Ghost Mario's side over me, one of your oldest friends.
Because Ghost Mario can hurt me.
Ghost Mario can come into my dreams at night.
Oh man. So okay, yeah. I'm glad that you're enjoying Aces. I'm super excited for Mario Golf. We should maybe get super invested in Mario Golf. Is there an online component that we know about?
There should be an online component to that game, and I'd be all about getting hyper invested in that game.
Yeah.
Well, son of a bitch.
That's awesome. So what's number 1 here, Dev?
Number 1 is, have I talked about Call Me Kat, Mayim Bialik's new show on Fox?
You have. You've mentioned that you've been really enjoying it, and I'm excited that you're still in it.
I'm not still in it.
Oh, there it is.
The finale happened this past Thursday, and
Series or season?
season, but I
Okay.
hope series. But here's the problem. The problem is Call Me Kat is based on a BBC show called Miranda, starring Miranda Hart. Do you know Miranda Hart? Is that a name that you know? Or were you aware of any of this?
Yeah, I think you've talked about this. I think you've talked about watching Call Me Cat and having some things about the ways that the jokes land with me and Bialik that they
They
don't.
don't over there, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I finished Miranda, all 23 episodes of Miranda, in the time that it took Call Me Kat to air their full season.
Okay.
And Miranda is just so much better than Call Me Kat that, like, the article I saw, why not just watch Miranda instead? Like, I'm like, oh, that's kind of pithy and snarky. Haha. No, you were right. You were totally right. Because, like, the finale episode, she was just so mean to people. And, like, I don't want her to be mean to people. And I just don't know. I don't.
Does it feel like it's a leftover of mean comedy? Because we have been moving past that more and more over the last few years.
Well, I think what feels so strange about it is that the rest of the show really didn't have that meanness. But, like, spoilers for the season finale of Call Me Kat, her cat dies in the beginning, and, like, being snippy with people and kind of lashing out is how she's dealing with it, which is to say she's not really dealing with the loss at all. And,
Right.
like, but it doesn't really fit with the character that we've seen up to this point. And, like, just like, I don't know. I don't, it didn't work for me, this finale episode.
We are getting towards the end of the weird seasons for everything, right? Like all of the like COVID seasons that started, like we're gonna start seeing how they kind of dig themselves out of this hole that they now have to go back to being just normal fucking shows, right?
Oh my God. Speaking of that, the Connors, I mean, that's it for Call Me Kat. Call Me Kat, really, just watch Miranda. That's it. The Connors have gone too far with their, like, COVID exists in our universe thing.
No,
With this
man.
last episode, like, it got
Yeah.
to the point where it's like, it's been good that you guys have, like, kind of been dealing with it and showcasing stuff. And this last week, Katie Seagal, who every time I think about the fact that Katie Seagal is dating John Goodman in The Connors, I can't help but think of Robot Santa. And the fact that, like, you tried to kill her as Robot Santa.
Yeah.
Oh,
Man.
It's that situation. She was diagnosed with COVID, and, like, that's fine. Having one of the characters diagnosed with the disease, it seems like the natural sort of endpoint of what they've been doing by, like, highlighting the fact that it's a real thing and it's something that people are dealing with. But then the discussion about how she might have gotten it and the way that they characterized Darlene as, like, she's been lying to the family and going out because she needs her alone time, and, like, I may have possibly infected everybody with my selfishness. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the story you guys want to tell? Like,
That's a real, I mean, that's a real pointed finger at some people that seems almost cringy.
yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Because the whole story of how she may have been exposed was, I've been going to the pool at the hotel to de-stress. And I don't swim, I just sit out. And the last time I was there, I fell asleep. And when I woke up, a bunch of 25-year-olds were having a birthday party, and none of them were wearing masks.
See,
And I'm
I
like,
am much more I am much more prone to the idea that we should not be like when the message they should be purporting is that at the end of the day it doesn't matter how you got it, right? Like at this point, like start behaving yourselves instantly. And like so it should have landed for me. It would be much more resonative if it landed on an ambiguous note of just like it doesn't even matter if we find out how. What matters is that we know that somebody has it, and we have to now behave ourselves and act in a way as we've been told to do in these situations. And I think that is a much more like important story to put on screen rather than do a blame game story, because that is just not gonna. That's I just don't think that that's what we should be doing right now in these situations on like a larger level, like when we're all trying to figure out like where this thing came from and immediately jumping to these horrible conclusions and talking about putting like trade embargoes on countries that we think might be the cause of this shit is a ridiculous like overreaction in the moment when we don't have all of the information, nor do we know if we're ever going to truly get the right information to do anything.
I agree. Which is why doing a blame game episode as opposed to, like, it really felt the episode was going to be, it started with them all at the Lunchbox, which is the restaurant that they own in the Connorverse.
Okay.
And, like, none of them wearing masks and everybody, like, kind of being lack about it, right? Because, you know, we're getting near to the end of it. None of us have vaccines, but we're all together. We're all family. Like, we're okay. Like, restaurants are safe to be at. And then, you know, if Dan gets the call and it's Louise saying, I have COVID, and then they need to realize that, like, this isn't over till it's over. Like, we can't lower our guard. That's a fine story. And it's an interesting, because I think that's a message that needs to be sent. Like, I think a lot of people, as they see people start to go out and do things because they've been vaccinated, like, they're approaching it very differently.
Yeah, well, and I don't mean to say that we shouldn't try and figure out where somebody caught it so that we can warn others. Like the idea of contact tracing,
contact tracing is very important. Yes,
is hugely important. It's just this idea of turning it into an episode of finger pointing and guilt, as opposed to like we need to find out where it came from so that we can help people, and on top of that, we need to start behaving ourselves. Like those are like those are the places that if you're going to address this, you need to go.
Right. Even if it was, like, because it started with Darlene saying, I need to go into the office to get some of this work done. I'd get that, too. Like, it's hard to work from home. That's the thing that's happening. And rather than go to the office, she, like, just goes to a business center at a hotel because it's going to be quiet or because it's better internet or some stupid thing. And then her thought being, like, I mean, that was stupid that I went there. But then to have the whole, a bunch of 25-year-olds showed up and they weren't wearing masks because 25-year-olds don't care. Like, that was weird. Yeah. And then the whole fear of like, oh no, I've been doing this the whole pandemic because I can't deal with you people. Like, oh, so you've just been lying to your family as the show has kind of been trying to be earnest about the disease? And how you're dealing with it, like
right. And so going with that, if you are supposed to be feeling like earnest about the ways in which we've been dealing with this, you have now become the worst, right? Like it automatically turns this character into like a villain in this story, because it's a very weird choice to make. Like, yes, there is something to be said in these situations when somebody gets it and we find out it's because like you said, a parent has had to go into the office unexpectedly, or like we had a scare where somebody without thinking about it was carrying heavy equipment across a parking lot, and a friend of theirs offered them to just drive them across the parking lot. So it was literally going to be 2 seconds at a car, no thought, just hopped in and went. And then we found out a couple of days later that the driver of that car had just gotten diagnosed with COVID. So it was within the window of just like, well, shit, we jumped in the car and I didn't have a mask on, and I'm trying to remember if they did. Like, couldn't even remember that, right? Like it was so quick that the details were so fuzzy, and it became a huge thing. And so like that accidents like that have happened all throughout. Everybody's going to have that story of that moment where they caught themselves or they caught a family member or something like that. And acknowledging that and like addressing that is fine or one thing, but I haven't seen it, but with like focusing on that as like the whole arc of the episode is
whole arc of the episode, everybody yelling at her like, I can't believe you do something so stupid, we're almost near the end of it, like vilifying her. And like also like the way the story's written, like she should kind of be vilified for it. Like It wasn't like that has happened here where like, you know, one of us going to work and then there was a diagnosis from one of the coworkers, and that like, well, I wasn't there when they were working, but now I need to take off a day because they're cleaning the office because they were in there and working. And then like that, like, oh, like you almost brought it into the house because of your coworkers, and like it's hard to separate that, right? It's hard to separate that, like your job almost exposed the whole family,
Right.
like, but like it's in like the heat of the moment, but they were like they all turned on her, and then at the end of it, it's like, you think we should forgive her now that we know she's negative? No, let's make her sit in it a little bit longer. It's like, fuck you. What is the message of this episode?
Yeah, that's harsh. Yeah, gross.
Yeah, I don't know. And look at that came from Call Me Cat, which just watched Miranda. Honestly, it's on Hulu, and the final special is on Amazon Prime. Check it out. That show's fantastic. And Call Me Cat, as much as it started as one thing, here's the secret DNA of it, and then we can send this one off to Will to do whatever Will does for this show. And I've been sending it to him for like 200 episodes. I still don't know what Will does.
He just takes it. I assume he's putting it out. I hope Will is making sure other people are listening.
But Eddie Gorodetsky is a consulting producer on Mom and a consulting producer on Call Me Cat, and so much of Mom's DNA has cross-pollinated with the Miranda DNA that like there's this like mystery solved.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know that, but then I saw his name and I'm like, oh, some of the like quote, and like Mom's not even that mean a show. Like I said, I'll go into it deeper, but like some of the relationships between characters in Call Me Cat are ripped straight out of the headlines from Mom and not Miranda. And that's interesting. It's interesting to see how this one guy working on both of them could cross-pollinate in that way. You know, creative stuff. It's weird. It's wacky. It's wild.
Yeah, man. Anything else that you wanted to address?
I am good. If you have something that
good.
you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
Couple of things that I've kind of jumped into and started, but I don't want to get too deep into them yet. A couple of games I've started, and we're getting to movie season because supposedly we'll be able to go back to the movies soon. But nothing huge yet.
Okay. Hello? Nothing huge yet, but I thought that you were going to share some stuff.
No.
No.
Nothing huge yet.
You ended with an ellipsis, not a period. You freaked me out, Sejan. Okay. Stop being silent.
Well, okay. Well, you can talk about.
No. We're good. All right. Well, if you're out there and you would like to volunteer to teach Sejan proper grammar when speaking, you can find him on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
If you have any idea what happened, you can explain it to Devin, because I think he's the one that misinterpreted at Devin D. Decker.
And if you're Kermit the Frog, you can get the fuck out of here, because I don't want you on my mass singing show. Will, bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.